Hello guys, it's me, Kazuma the Edgelord. Now for today, I wanted to talk about, My Little Pony. Now, My Little Pony Friendship is Magic is one of my top favorite cartoons of all time. It has anime themes and mystical magic feeling to it. Now it's, very adventurous. It is a very great show. But as of now, I want to talk about an episode that kind of confuses me a lot, which is MLP Season 6, Episode 22. This episode talks about the point of view of Rarity, Applejack, and Pinkie Pie. In this episode, Twilight already explained how things went. However, it doesn't feel complete at all because she only explained the storm, but not what really happened. So, this is what this video is for. Today, we will be discussing what really happened. Okay, now let's start. Now, first of all, we'll start with our common goals. I will enumerate all of it. First of all were trying to do something nice for their friends. That's something Twilight already mentioned. Number 2, did all of it with their own aesthetic. All of them did all of their goals with their own aesthetic. So that's one thing we need to know. So they were focusing on their own perspective. Next, merely focused on what they wanted to accomplish individually. So they were only focused on what they wanted to do individually. They weren't really paying attention to what the other wanted to do. They only wanted to do what they wanted to do. Next, consistent similarities. Pinkie Pie being clueless. Now, most of the time, if you watch the video, she was completely being clueless. She didn't really know what she was doing. Out of all of it, Pinkie Pie was the most clueless. No offense to her. Rarity was a bit aware. Applejack was very aware. Pinkie Pie was completely clueless. She wasn't aware of what was going on. Like, she didn't understand anything. Next, the cucumber sandwich falling. Now, this is a big aspect of what's going on because Pinkie Pie already mentioned it. Rarity mentioned it. Applejack mentioned it. And finally, Twilight mentioned that the cucumber or whatever, I made a mistake, I was about to say apple, the cucumber sandwich falling down, it actually explains how the sea monster was associated to all of it. So that's a big aspect of the consistency. Next, the side of Pinkie Pie and Applejack showing Applejack to be completely normal. Now, this is a huge aspect in my opinion as well, because according to Rarity was the only one who referred Applejack to being a nutcase. But if you look at Pinkie Pie and Applejack's story, it seems to be very consistent because both stories show Applejack to be completely normal. So, I want you guys to take note of all of these, okay? Because we'll be going to the next part. Okay, now like I said a while ago, I want you guys to take note of the stuff I told you guys to take note of. Now, I already made a case file for each of the characters. I tallied which information is legit and which information isn't legit. Now, we're gonna go dissect every character's perspective. So let's start off with Rarity's side of the story. Now let's begin. What is real? She brought many clothes as usual. Both Pinkie Pie and Applejack make this very clear and consistent. So that's actually pretty normal. It's pretty normal for Rarity to bring a lot of clothes. Even in past episodes, she makes this reference pretty clear. Next, Rarity's food falling in all 3 stories. That is real. That always happens. In all of the stories that was, mentioned, Rarity's food keeps falling down. Next, Rarity's outfit in Applejack's story is the most realistic and it resembles the torn mudded coat that Pinkie Pie's outfit Rarity doesn't wear, which is pirate themed clothes. Now, this is very consistent as well because I want to go repeat that. I'm gonna go repeat that part. Rarity's outfit in Applejack's story is the most realistic and even resembles the torn mudded coat in which Pinkie Pie's outfit Rarity doesn't wear, which is a pirate themed cloth. Now, this is very important because in terms of what Rarity's outfit was able to show, the one with the mudded clothes, or the one with the mudded cloth, which is the one that Pinkie Pie and Rarity doesn't wear, which is a pirate outfit theme, this is very consistent even in the beginning of the episode. So that's actually something that we can all agree on. Now, let's talk about which is exaggerated or misunderstood. Now, let's start. Rarity's idea of small is subjective. Every time Rarity says something that's small, it's subjective. Small for her is many. Her idea of small isn't really small because she's a fashionista, she's a bit of a drama queen sometimes. Her idea of small is complicated. Now, next. Rarity thought Applejack was rude about the food but in reality, Applejack got tumbled accidentally. Rarity thought Applejack was being rude about the food, but in reality, Applejack just got tumbled. Now, I want to go talk about this part as well, because for Rarity, she took it personally. She thought that Applejack was out to get her, so of course, she took it personally. But in actuality, it's actually, an accident. And later, I will prove that it's an accident because I keep, comparing the stories from each character and which ones are consistent. Those are usually the ones that are clear. Next, Rarity thought Applejack was the main problem because she kept talking and focusing on the map, but in reality, she was trying to save them. Applejack was trying to save them because she held the map, but for Rarity, she thought she was the problem because, she kept holding to the map and she wouldn't let go of it, and she was acting a bit strange in Rarity's perspective. And most of the time, Applejack with her, clothes, Rarity was exaggerating, thinking it was an apple hit her head or crazy moment of piracy or something. She thought of it as something complicated and exaggerated. So, to summarize it, all of these are the parts that are exaggerated and misunderstood. Later, if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments below. Because as of now, I'm really dissecting all of these. I have a lot of time sometimes in my hand, and I really like analyzing these kinds of stories. Okay, next, we'll start with Pinkie Pie's story now. Now, let's go. Which part of Pinkie Pie was real? Which part of Pinkie Pie's story is real? She was being playful. In all three stories, or majority of the stories, she was actually being playful. That's actually something we could all agree on. Next, she meant well and was mostly clueless. Like I said, out of all of the three, Pinkie Pie is the most clueless. Next, she was annoyed by Rarity because she kept insisting her posh ways while Applejack went with her despite not knowing Applejack was also annoyed. Now for Pinkie Pie, Pinkie Pie, she always wants to have fun. Rarity wasn't really into the whole party thing, so Pinkie Pie was hurt. She didn't like that. Applejack found it annoying as well, but Applejack, like a good friend, she actually went with it. So that's actually something that's consistent with all majority of the stories. Now, let's talk about which parts are exaggerated. This part is a bit short because for Pinkie Pie, it's pretty obvious. Like, her part is one of the, secondary, in my opinion, secondary or a little bit more exaggerated parts. Now, let's go back to the topic. Which part of Pinkie Pie's story is exaggerated or misunderstood? She did not mention Rarity's reason for taking the map, indicating she was still holding a grudge. So that's pretty much it. She did not mention Rarity's reason for taking the map. According to her, she just did it out of a glimpse, out of no reason, which is wrong, which still indicates that she has a grudge. Next, she was not paying attention to Applejack tripping, so she filled in the gaps and said Rarity threw it herself. That's another thing I want to talk about, because if you'll notice Pinkie Pie's story, she was not really paying attention to Applejack tripping. According to Pinkie Pie, Rarity did it. So that's also not correct. That's misunderstood. Next, she lied about Rarity not playing the piñata. Rarity and Applejack's story showed that Rarity did in fact play. Rarity did in fact play the piñata, but the reason why Pinkie Pie did not mention Rarity playing the piñata, because first of all, she was holding a grudge probably, or she was clueless. That's another pretty obvious reason, or it can be both. Rarity and Pinkie Pie, they usually don't get along too much because they have different ideologies and they don't mix sometimes, but they're pretty much good friends. But in this story, during the piñata scene, I think we could all assume that she was clueless, she held a grudge, so she didn't really notice that Rarity actually did in fact play. Alright, now let's go to the final case file that I made. Let's look at Applejack's side of the story. Now, which part is real? Let's talk about it. Pinkie Pie covered her eyes with a blindfold and Applejack held one up, making Rarity assume she was pirate crazy. That's one thing I want to talk about, because in Rarity's story, she thought that Applejack was a pirate and she was acting crazy. But in actuality, in Pinkie Pie's story, we discovered that it was actually a blindfold and Applejack held one eye up with a coat, so it looked like she was actually pirate crazy, but as a matter of fact, it's just a misunderstanding. That's one part. Next, Pinkie Pie kept saying piñata time in all three stories. That's another thing that Applejack mentioned. Next, Rarity being posh about the posh cruise. When I mean posh, I mean rich. Like, Rarity loves rich and fancy stuff. So that's another thing. Rarity being posh about the posh cruise that even Rarity herself admitted. That's another thing. Every time that Applejack mentioned that Rarity loves rich stuff, it's very consistent in all three stories. Next, which parts are exaggerated or misunderstood? Now, let's go. Applejack was heavily annoyed by Pinkie Pie, even though Pinkie Pie was just playful, but also blamed her for the issue. Applejack also blamed Pinkie Pie for the issue, even though that Pinkie Pie was not aware, because like I said, she was clueless. Next, she assumed Rarity wanted her map for petty reasons, but did not know she was different kind of direction. She knew a different kind of direction. So I want to go repeat that. She assumed Rarity wanted her map for petty reasons, but not knowing she knew a different direction. So that's another thing. Next, or lastly, Applejack is heavily focused on her treasure hunt, that she is actually not paying attention to Pinkie Pie, and Rarity even finds them annoying. So Applejack finds them both annoying. She was focused on the treasure map, which led to the whole, pirate crazy thing that Rarity kept talking about. And for Applejack, she found both of them annoying. But if you ask Applejack, she would think that Pinkie Pie was less annoying, because for Rarity, she was actually the most, prima donna out of all of them. Now, we're gonna go discuss the most important part, which is the analysis, and I hope you guys would listen more, because this is gonna be very interesting. I'm about to tell you. Okay, now let's go for the analysis, or the summary. I made a summary or a hypothesis because I wanted to talk about my overall perspective, or my ideals towards what's going on. I tried to think of it as a way for me to analyze things in a scientific or historical base, because I wanted to make sure that the stories add up. Anything that doesn't add up, I try to scrap it off. I try to filter it out. So let's go back to the topic, shall we? In summary, each of them focus on describing themselves. That's number one. Paid close attention to their intentions. So that's another thing. Notice why certain things were exaggerated in their view. It's another thing. Also, worth noting, Applejack's story is the most accurate for many reasons. Applejack's story is the most consistent. Keep note of that. Next, Pinkie Pie's story is the second most reliable because it ties in with Applejack's story. Pinkie Pie's story is the second most reliable story because even though she's clueless, it ties in with Applejack's story. Lastly, Rarity's story is the most unrealistic, but even that story ties in with Pinkie Pie's story, which is related to Applejack's story. Rarity's story is the least realistic. It's the most exaggerated part, in my opinion, because there's so many blunders that don't add up. But even if you try to analyze it and scrap off the stuff that doesn't make sense, it still ties in with Pinkie Pie's story, and Pinkie Pie's story adds up with Applejack's story. So if you look at it in that perspective, there's a link. there's a circular link in which their stories make sense. So I want you guys to understand my analysis, my summary, my hypothesis, call it whatever you want, but I want you guys to keep note of all of this. Alright, I know you guys are very confused. Some of you guys are thinking, Kazuma, what the hell was that? What really happened? So what really happened? Just tell us what really happened, because we're really confused, and I'm telling you, I'm also confused. That's why I made a really long analysis. I had to dissect every story. I was thinking like a detective. I wanted to make sure that everything made sense. I looked at clues. I looked at everything. I even took note of what Twilight said. And you know, you guys are about to find out what really happened. So don't worry. I hope you guys don't leave just yet, because there's more to come. There, here it is. The moment you guys have been waiting for. The chronological order of what really happened. According to my view, according to my scientific analysis, according to my detective skills, my deductive reasoning, according to everything I've been doing for the past weeks, because I've been trying to analyze everything that's been going on. Because Twilight's story only explained the storm. She only explained the storm. She didn't explain stuff about what really happened. So that's why I'm here. Okay, guys, please listen and you know, take notes, and I'm about to tell you what really happened, and imagine it. Okay, all of these happen in the chronological order. Rarity brings many clothes. After that, Applejack speaks a bit of a pirate and focus on her treasure agenda. Pinkie Pie focus on her party agenda, in which is made clear in all three stories, and she sets up the piñata time. Pinkie Pie sets up candy. Rarity offers posh food, expensive food to Pinkie Pie. Pinkie Pie doesn't like it. Applejack trips to Rarity, making her drop her food, in which Rarity thinks that, you know, it's an insult. They all have an awkward moment, so they all separate. Applejack is leading the boat, like in all three stories. The storm finally happens. Rarity wanted to head for another direction, yet Applejack couldn't reciprocate. Pinkie Pie, being clueless, thought they were all playing tug of war. Boat sinks near the shore, and it was not even deep at all. In all three stories, it was admitted. So, in this chronological order, this is what really happened. So I'll try to summarize it again. Rarity brings many clothes. Applejack tried to speak on a pirate agenda. Pinkie Pie focuses on her party agenda. Pinkie Pie sets up candy. Rarity offers her posh, expensive food. Pinkie Pie doesn't like it. Applejack trips Rarity, making her drop her food. They all have an awkward moment. Applejack is leading the boat, like in all three stories. The storm happens. Rarity wanted to head to another direction, yet Applejack couldn't reciprocate that. Pinkie Pie, being clueless, thought they were playing tug of war. The boat sinks near the shore, and it's not even deep, because Twilight thought it was deep, but it's not actually deep. They all made it safe, alive. They were all covered in mud and dirt when they came out of the train. So I want to make that clear, because in all three stories it was admitted. Now, this is what you guys have been waiting for. Keep note of all of this, imagine it, and then we're finished. This took me a lot of time to do, because I had to analyze everything. I had to crop out majority of what Rarity had to say, because I kept trying to fit Rarity's, you know, story into the puzzle, yet it just couldn't fit. Like, I tried to fit it out, and I'm not saying that Rarity is a liar. I'm just saying that her perspective is very different from how Pinkie Pie or Applejack would normally think. Applejack and Pinkie Pie's story tie in together. Even though Pinkie Pie is clueless, Pinkie Pie was pretty much, you know, intact with Applejack. But Applejack did find her annoying. I just want to make that clear. Anyways, this took me a lot of time. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And please subscribe, because this took me a lot of time to make. I have a lot of free time sometimes, and whenever I have free time, I love analyzing stories. I love analyzing these kinds of cases. I love analyzing literature. I love analyzing cartoons. So, you know, this is very fun for me to do. I love deductive reasoning, and if you guys like the video, please share it. share it to a friend who's a fan of MLP. Share it to somebody who's confused about episode 22 of season 6. Anyways, that's it for today. Goodbye.